Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to Hayley's Space. My name is Hayley and I'm a nurse and knitter from Melbourne, Australia. And this is an episode of my knitting podcast where I talk about all the things I've been knitting or crocheting or sewing on, as well as some life chat, some nitty chat, some other things here and there. I also put some vlogs on my channel as well. Today is Monday. It is the 13th of May today, and the month has literally got away from me. I will talk about that in a little minute, but first I wanted to start by saying a huge thank you so much. We've hit 500 subscribers on this channel, which is so random to say and so crazy to me to think that 500 of you want to stick around and listen to me talk about my knitting. I really appreciate it so much. I appreciate anyone who watches the videos to begin with, but if you subscribe and comment, I really appreciate it so much. It means a lot to me. I started this channel almost a year ago now when my partner moved away to join the military, and we started doing long distance, and I started it as sort of like an outlet to talk about my knitting and share what I'm working on with some like-minded people, and it just has blossomed from there. And I really appreciate each and every one of you who join me every month, or every now and then when I post a video, and yeah, I just really appreciate it. So I do follow a standard podcast format. I'll be talking about my finished objects and then my whips and any acquisitions or plans, as well as what I've been watching or reading or listening to whilst I have been knitting. As always, the timestamps will be down below and chapters as well at the bottom of the video. So if you want to skip parts or go back to something that I may have mentioned, it's really easy to do that all down there. I have my notes here next to me, so if you catch me looking over to the side here, I've got everything written down. I will link everything hopefully down below. Hopefully I'll get it correct as well. I don't usually put like hyperlinks, like URLs in my description box. I just put the names of things, but if you want me to put the actual links of things down in the description, just let me know or leave a comment and I can just send you the link. That's easy as well. But I should mention hopefully everything down in the description below. Last month I also included a little vlog at the end of my podcast episode. I had a lot of footage from projects I mentioned in that video, so I'm going to do that again this month. I did take a little bit of footage sporadically every now and then on some things that I was working on. My previous video was just a week of knitting vlog in mid-April, so a lot of the projects that I'm going to talk about I already showed in that video, so if you do want to see more about them, feel free to go watch that video if you'd like. But I'm going to start off with a little bit of life update chat. As I said, May has sort of got away with me. April was a really busy month. So I did night shifts throughout all of April before I went away on holiday, which I'll talk about in a second. But that meant that I was just doing a lot of working, a lot of knitting and a lot of uni work. So uni has been really busy this past month. I've got a couple of deadlines coming up that I need to meet, as well as lots of assignments on top of that, which I'll talk about in a sec. But I did night shifts for the first half of April. I obviously put out that vlog that I made, my week of knitting vlog. And then I went to Canberra to see my partner for Anzac Day, and then we actually went away to Thailand for a week, which was incredible. We haven't had a tropical holiday together since we've been together. We've been together for almost 8 years now, 7 years. We did meet in high school, so we've been together for a while. So ever since we got together, we haven't been away on a tropical holiday. And so we spent the week on Koh Phangan, which is an island off of Koh Samui. So we flew into Koh Samui at the start of the week, spent one night there, walked around, explored a little bit near where we were staying. And then we took a boat over to Koh Phangan to stay at one of the resorts there. We're not big party people, we're not particularly social, we're both quite introverted and like to be cozy at home. So we did not go for the full moon parties and things that Koh Phangan is known for. And we actually stayed on the other side of the island. We stayed on the east side of the island in a resort there, and only really went over to the built up west side once to kind of explore a little bit and see what was around. Other than that though, we really just laid by the pool, relaxed, had really good food, and yeah, I had the best time. I took some clips and videos, so I'll include those at the end. I did do a little bit of knitting whilst I was away, but the temperature was just way too hot and it was super humid, so I was just sweating constantly, and that just isn't great for knitting because my hands get so sweaty. So not much knitting whilst I was away, but lots of reading, which I'll talk about later as well. And then last week, we spent the week just at home. So my partner, he had 2 weeks off from training. So the first week we spent in Thailand, the second week we spent here at home, and we were just relaxing. And he flew back to Canberra last night. Now, uni has been a bit full on. When I went away, I didn't take my computer with me or anything, so I didn't work on anything for a week. And so coming back, there's just a lot to do. So in the next week or 2 weeks, I've got 3 assignments due. One of them being a presentation where I'm sort of presenting the plan or the idea for my thesis to everyone who is also doing honours, as well as everyone's supervisors. So and also like the head of nursing at my uni and stuff like that. So a little bit of pressure with that presentation. I'm feeling it. I also have my ethics application due at the end of this month. So I'm really focusing on trying to get all of that done and get that perfect so that I don't have to change it too much if they come back and say that there are changes that need to be made. So working on that, and then hopefully that means I can start recruitment and actually start conducting my research next month, which would be great. On that same sort of line, medical school applications are also due at the end of this month, so I am working on getting that submitted. I've sort of switched up my preferences this time around, just based on where my partner might be stationed once he finishes this training this year. So we'll see how that goes. Pray for me, do whatever, send me good luck, all the good vibes. I won't find out till the end of the year, so I will keep you updated on anything that happens with regards to that. All right, I think that is enough yappering about life. I'll talk a bit about my plans and stuff for May at the end. But let's talk about finished objects, because I have a few. As I mentioned, a lot of these projects you will have seen in my most recent vlog. I finished, I think, 3 projects during that vlog. So if you want to see more about the process and more details about those projects, go and check that video out. That just means that I won't be talking too much in detail about them here. I'll obviously talk about the basics, the pattern, the yarn, all of that jazz, but some of the self-drafted projects, I'm not going to talk too much about the construction because I talked at length about them in that video. But we're going to start with the baby bear bonnet by Knitting for Olive. So this is my baby bear bonnet in this beautiful, beautiful blue color. As I said, this is by Knitting for Olive. I knit this up to gift to one of my partner and I's high school friends who's expecting his first baby with his wife, which is so surreal to say. They're sort of the first of our friendship group to expect a baby. So it's a little bit surreal. It's a little bit crazy to know that we're sort of entering that phase of our lives. But I knit this up using some acrylic yarn that I got from a bargain bin at Spotlight, which is just a craft store here in Australia. And they have these big bargain bins of yarn called mill ends. And it's basically just scraps of yarn that they spin up into these yarns. I'm not a huge fan of how this pattern was written. I think if you're a beginner, it would be really difficult for you to interpret and kind of understand what you need to do. It doesn't hold your hand at all whatsoever. It doesn't take you through details of steps, really. I think I got stumped at the start of the short row section. That's just because I don't really like short rows. And so if a pattern includes short rows, I like them to really, really explain it in detail so I can just follow the steps and go through the motions. But I managed to figure it out thanks to some project pages on Ravelry and also obviously YouTube videos as well. So I would not recommend this pattern for a complete beginner. I think maybe if you're an adventurous beginner and you've done short rows before and a couple of other techniques before, you could give this a go. But for a complete beginner, I don't think this pattern is that appropriate. But I love it. I love the way that it's come out. I think it's really, really cute. With regards to the gauge, I did not get the suggested gauge for this pattern. I did size down my needles and it made quite a tight gauge because this yarn is quite thick. I was going to size down maybe another half needle size, but this acrylic was just so tight and so squeaky that if I sized down any further, it was just going to be an absolute nightmare and a pain to knit up. So what I ended up doing is knitting up the second size and then just winging it and seeing what size we came out with. I don't know that many young children. I don't have young children in my life. So I was saying in the vlog, I wasn't sure what size of kid this would fit. So I asked you guys to give me sort of suggestions, and someone in my comments, I think their name is Jan, mentioned that this probably would fit about a 2-year-old. So thank you, Jan. I can now send this with a size suggestion and an age suggestion for them, because I didn't want to send it without it and them sort of be like, well, when is our kid going to fit this? I really enjoyed knitting this. I love the way that it came out. The I-cord I knit shorter than I was actually supposed to. When I was knitting the I-cord, I forgot that because my gauge is different and I'm knitting a smaller size, that's going to give me a bigger size, if that makes sense. I forgot that I needed to knit the I-cord straps longer than the pattern suggested. So I knit them straight to pattern, and they're just a bit short. So they don't tie into a neat little bow, which is a shame, but they do tie into just like a little knot, which I think will be cute. I've kind of messed that up now. It was like perfectly in the middle and now I've kind of screwed it. Otherwise, I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Once I managed to get through the pattern and work out what was going on, I really enjoyed it. And I want to knit this pattern up again, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, I think it's a really cute knit. I think it's adorable, and I hope that they like it, and I hope their kid likes it. The next thing that I knit up in that vlog was actually a crochet project. This is a self-drafted crochet granny square baby blanket using just scraps of yarn. So I've got scraps of acrylic, some wool in there. This blue is a random wool that I had. Some of them held double to sort of mix the colors, like this one here. Got a rainbow color here, some green and white. And basically what I did was I knit up a bunch of colored granny squares, and then I connected them all with the white yarn using the crochet continuous join as you go method, which is my favorite way to join granny squares. It's super easy, super quick, and gives a really, really nice finished look, and it only leaves you with 2 ends to weave in. No, one end to weave in on the border, which is much better than having, you know, your granny square ends to weave in as well as the border ends to weave in. So I'll link the YouTube tutorial I use for that down below, but I'm going to send this with the baby bear bonnet. Because this is mostly acrylic, it didn't soften up particularly well with wet blocking. I mentioned this in my last podcast as well with one of my sweaters that I knit up using a 50% wool, 50% acrylic yarn. I need to get a steamer because I'm finding that any yarn that has acrylic content is just doesn't soften up at all with the wet blocking method that I do, even if the water is super warm. So this would benefit from a steam, but I don't know if I'm going to get a steamer before I send this away. So it just sort of reminded me that that's something on my knit to-do list, is to buy a steamer. The next project I finished was a pair of Sunday socks for myself. I have knit up several Sunday socks and talked about them at length on this channel, so I'm not going to talk about them too much. Just know that I love the pattern. I love the socks that it creates, hence why I knit it up so often, and I would recommend it to absolutely anybody. I feel like that's all I need to say about the pattern. It is by Petite Knit. I don't know if I mentioned that. I knit up this pair using Keepsake Fibre Co 100% pure wool, and I used this yarn to knit up the Harris hood, which I featured in my previous podcast, and I loved the way that this yarn worked up. It's so incredibly soft and it blooms so beautifully after wet blocking, and I had quite a lot left over after knitting the Harris hood, so I decided to knit up a pair of socks for myself. and I have worn them to absolute death. They are dirty right now. I do need to wash them again. I will be honest with you, the yarn is not holding up very well. It has pilled a lot, and it's created a sort of fuzzy halo around the sock on the outside as well. No holes or anything, which is great. I didn't include any like nylon content or mohair or anything like that. So I am keeping my eye out for any holes that may appear in the sock, but none yet. But they are pilling a lot, which means that I won't be knitting up a sweater in this yarn in the future. I was thinking about it. I thought this yarn is beautiful. It's so soft. It blooms perfectly. But with the amount of pilling that's happened just from wearing the socks in a pair of slippers, I know that the underarms of a sweater would pill like crazy with this yarn. So wouldn't suggest it for a sweater, but for something like a beanie or a hood, it would be perfect. So would recommend it for that. I still have 2 balls of that yarn left sitting up in my yarn hammock. So I'm thinking of knitting up a matching pair of socks for my partner so we can have matching little wintry socks. But I'm not sure when I'll cast those on. I do love having a Sunday sock whip on the needles just to knit up whenever I need something quick and easy, or if I'm on the go as well. I like to take it when I'm working on night shifts or even on day shifts in my breaks. I like to knit as well. So we'll see. I might cast that on this month, but we'll just see how we go with all my other whips. The next thing I have to show you is another crochet project. And I made this project just before we went away when I realized I didn't have a beach bag. I didn't have a cute little bag that I could take down to the pool with me with my towel and my book and my knitting in. So about 2 days before we left for Thailand, I decided to cast this on and crochet it up. And this is the bag. Oh, here we go. So this is knit up using granny squares. I'll see if I can get the angle right. The way I made this was by crocheting 3 granny squares. So you can see there's one there, which is a bit stretched obviously because this is the top of the bag. So 3 granny squares, 1 and then 1 at the bottom. We'll talk about that hole in a second. And then 1 here on the corner. And I'll include like a little diagram here, or maybe I'll link a tutorial down as well of a similar bag if I can find one, of the way I constructed this. It's not a new novel way of constructing a crochet bag. I got this inspiration off of Pinterest, seeing bags in this style, but you basically slip stitch them together. And then what I did was I single crocheted around the opening of the bag, and then I knit up an I-cord. I think this was a 6-stitch. Yeah, 6-stitch I-cord. Knit that as long as I wanted it, and then sewed that to the top of the bag. And yeah, I love how this came out. So this yarn is a cotton yarn that I had in my stash from when I frogged a sweater I bought from Kmart years and years and years and years ago. And I've been intending to use this yarn for something. I wanted to knit up a dress for a holiday once, or a skirt or a crop top, things like that. But I just never really could get excited about a project with this yarn. I'm not a big summer garment knitter, so I found it a bit difficult to find something to do with this yarn. I have knit up a, oh my God, it's My Favorite Things Knitwear. It's a camisole. I can't remember what number it is, but it's like the racer back one that comes up here. I'll put a picture in. But I thought this yarn would just be perfect for a little summery beach bag. I used this bag every single day whilst we were in Thailand. I took it with me to the temples we went to the villages and markets and everywhere. Down by the pool as well with my books in it. Absolutely everywhere. This got used to death whilst we were away, which was perfect. Unfortunately, the bottom granny square does have a hole in the center? No, just off of the center. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can. Which is a bit disappointing, but honestly, I'm not surprised. With this yarn, there are some points where it was snapping as like super easily. And then also there were some points where my joins weren't great. So I knew it was going to happen, but I'm just going to sew it back up. I'll just do a little patchwork job and sew that back up. But it is winter now, So this bag isn't going to get used until I go away again in June. So I'll probably just leave it, and then before I go away I'll sew it up. But I'm really happy and really proud of that project. I think it was the perfect use for that yarn, and it served its purpose whilst I was away, which is what it was for. Okay, my last knitted finished object is one that I did work on whilst I was away in Thailand. I cast this one on before we left so that I could work on it on the plane. And it is this knitted twist headband. I don't have anything like this in my wardrobe, and I knew I wanted one for this winter so that I could wear my hair in a ponytail or a bun and still keep my ears warm. This is not a novel construction or a new construction either. This is self-drafted, but you can find a million videos online on how to make these. There's also some free patterns on Ravelry. I had a quick look in case I could link something that was similar. I knit this up using Drops Baby Merino, and I think it was a 3.5mm needle, I think. Or maybe it was 2.5. It might have been 2.5mm. But what I did was I cast on a number of stitches. I think it was 80. Hold on. Yeah, 80 stitches in the round, and then I knit in the round using magic loop to create just a long tube that would fit around my head. And then I'll link a tutorial or something down below on how to join the twist, but basically you sew all the layers together in a particular way, and that makes the twist at the front. And I used up pretty much every last bit of the Drops Baby Merino for this pattern. I think I had 60 grams left, and I have, I think, 5 grams left over. I'm looking at it right now. It's in my little yarn jar, my scrap jar, and it's maybe 5 grams, not even left. So was really happy to use up every last ounce of this yarn and get it out of my stash, because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And it keeps my ears warm. It does its job. I wore it the other day to go on a walk, and it was perfect. Exactly what it was designed to do. So really, really happy with that project. It is a little bit tight. I was playing a little bit of yarn chicken. Obviously, I haven't got much left over, so I was a bit worried that I was going to run out. So I did knit it a little bit smaller than maybe I should have, but it hasn't been blocked. I haven't blocked it. So I'm thinking either A, I won't block it and it will just stretch with wear, or B, maybe I will block it and just hope it doesn't go too loose. We'll see. We'll see what happens, what I decide to do, but for now, it's perfect. It's cute. Okay, my next finished objects are sewing finished objects. So I went op shopping last week with the goal of finding some fabrics for sewing, whether that be for scrubs or project bags or anything at all. And I also had some quilting squares that I had bought from Spotlight ages and ages ago that I wanted to incorporate into some project bags. So I went op shopping, found some fabrics and found some zips as well. And I made some project bags. I will link the tutorial I used down below for these two. It's really, really easy to follow, really straightforward. If you're a beginner at sewing, I would definitely recommend this tutorial and this project in particular, just because it's so easy and they're so useful. The first bag I made was this Winnie the Pooh themed bag. I'm sure you can tell already, this bag is rife with mistakes. I am someone who gets really excited for the finished object, and when I sew, I kind of get a little bit carried away and not stressed, but invested, and I hyperfixate a little bit and produce something that's maybe not the best quality, at least when I do something for the first time. So this was the first bag that I made. This is just from a quilting square that I had from Spotlight. And this fabric is also from Spotlight, left over from some scrubs that I had made. And this little tab was from some fabric that I bought from the op shop this past week. Now, I love this bag. I think it's adorable. I think it's so, so cute. But unfortunately, it's not particularly functional. So when I sewed the zip on, the first time I sewed the zip, it was fine. This is an invisible zipper, but I wasn't intending to sew it on as an invisible zipper. So the first side was fine. The second side, I sewed the zip way too close to the lining and the outside fabric. So the zip unfortunately doesn't do up or open without a lot of fiddling and a lot of pushing and getting the lining out of the way. I unfortunately had to unpick some of the stitches on the inside to try and fix it, but it just didn't really work. So it's also very uneven on the side here, but it's holding some knitting. So it's doing its job, which is fine. I'm fine with that. So I'm happy with this project, even though it's not particularly functional. It has just a white lining on the inside. I'm just using some bed sheets that I had in my sewing fabric stash. And I just think it's adorable. I think it's super cute. So that leads me into the second project bag that I made. And this one had a few less mistakes. The zip that I had available for this one was a lot shorter than the zip suggested in the tutorial, and also the zip that I had for this bag. So what I did was I altered the dimensions of the pattern, just a smaller bag. So this one is just using this fabric that was from a table runner that I found at the op shop. It reminds me of some chairs that we had, some recliners that we had when I was younger. And it just gives me granny vibes, which I love, like cottagecore, granny sewing knitting vibes. Then the zip I also got from the op shop, as well as the lining. I did a red lining to match the zipper, and I love this. I love that it's a little bit better than the other one. I love that it's smaller as well, to hold sort of sock projects or others, which I will talk about in a minute. Unfortunately, I didn't line up the seams on the bottom very well, but the good thing about having a heavily patterned fabric is that it disguises mistakes like that. So it's not particularly noticeable, and it's doing its job. The zipper works. I fixed that issue, and even though it's not perfect, it does its job. So I'm really happy with that one, and I'm excited to make some more in May. I have lots of different fabrics that I want to use, and I want to make heaps more. So keep an eye out for more project bags. Oh, that was a lot of talking. Let's move on to works in progress. I'm going to start with the work in progress that I'm holding in this bag. I will preface this section of the video by saying that all my works in progress are in very initial stages. When we got back from Thailand, I got a bit of cast-on-itis, and I cast on a bunch of stuff, and now they're all sort of at the same point, so same sort of starting point. So just be aware of that. So the work in progress that I have in this bag is the very start of a Sophie shawl by Petite Knit. This is a very well-known pattern, a very popular pattern. The Sophie scarf went around for a little while and was quite popular, still is quite popular. So this is the bigger shawl version of that pattern. And I'm knitting this up in Plotulopi by Istex. I think I got that wrong in my last podcast. I think I talked about the wrong yarn maker. I don't really know, but I think it's by Istex. It sounds about right. Now I have knit up 2 sweaters in the Plotulopi. This is my porcelain sweater by Knit, and I've also knit up a Nordic Nights sweater by Drops Design using the Plotulopi held double. The dark brown color here is heathered marsh, and the light brown color is heathered oatmeal. If you've been keeping up with my podcast, you would know that I have talked about this yarn in almost every single one since I started podcasting. And that's because I have quite a lot of it, and it goes a really long way. So this yarn was a gift from my partner's mum years ago, probably 3 years ago now, for my birthday. She gifted me 4 plates of each of these colors, which is a lot of yarn, and I'm still working my way through it. I am in love with this yarn. After knitting 2 sweaters that I am now wearing to death this winter in this yarn, I am obsessed with it, and I just want to keep knitting it up, and I'm so excited to knit up more projects with it. So in saying that, in my previous podcast, I asked for some suggestions about what I should do with the remaining Plotulopi that I have. And someone in the comments, I think their name was Miranda, suggested the Autumn Tails cowl by Ozetta. And I was going to cast that on. I came super close to getting the pattern and casting that on, but I decided against it because I don't think I would get much use out of that style of cowl. It's kind of like a collar. I think it wouldn't particularly fit well in with my wardrobe at the moment. I would like to knit something like it up in the future, but at the moment it just doesn't really have a place in my wardrobe. So I decided I wanted to do a scarf. And I had a look on Ravelry and was looking around, and nothing was really sparking my interest. I wanted something really simple, really mindless, but with a little bit of interest. So I wasn't keen on cables or texture really. So I just settled on the Sophie shawl. I knew I wanted to knit it up for a while. I like the I-cord edges. I think that adds the interest that I'm looking for, and I also like the shape of it. And so I just decided to just go with that. I know I knit up a lot of petite knit patterns, but I like them. I like the way they're written. I like the style that she produces with her patterns. So that's what we've gone with. I am so early in this project. I have barely progressed past the cast on, but I am liking it. I think this is, yes, this is a 5mm needle using the plotulopi. So it is creating quite an airy, loose gauge, which I like. I don't want to knit a scarf that's going to make me super sweaty with, you know, unspun wool, because then I'll get itchy. So I'm happy that it's a bit airy so that I can wrap it around a few times. As I said, I'm really happy with plotulopi. I'm in love with the yarn. I'm excited to explore using different colors in this yarn and knitting up some more maybe Fair Isle sweaters in this yarn, but it's just holding up beautifully in my sweaters and I'm getting so much use out of them. So prepare to see a lot more of this yarn on my channel because I'm obsessed. So that's my Sophie shawl. Speaking of plotulopi sweaters, I'll just quickly talk about this next one. I have knit this pattern up twice now, and I spoke about it in my previous podcast, and it is the step-by-step sweater by Handmade by Florence. I kept misnaming it in the previous podcast, I think, and in the description as well, I need to change it. It says the simple sweater. I don't know why I got it in my head that this pattern was called the simple sweater. I think because it is so simple, it just, I don't know, I invented that in my mind and that's now what it's called in my head, and I am trying so hard to get out of that habit. But I have cast on another step-by-step sweater using plotulopi in the heathered marsh colorway. Now, the same thing happened with this sweater as happened with the scarf. I wanted to knit up another sweater in this yarn, and I was looking through Ravelry and trying to find something really simple that didn't involve cables or texture and that was in a really easy, mindless construction. I just wanted something really simple, really basic that I didn't have to think too hard about. And I was looking through Ravelry, I was thinking about the sweater number 14 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I was going to knit that up, and I came super close to buying that pattern as well, but it just wasn't exciting me. And what was exciting me was the step-by-step sweater. So I cast it on. I have done the ribbed neckline. I did a folded collar, and I have done the short row shaping on the back, and now I'm just working on the raglan increases. But as I said, really in the initial stages, I have only done this in the last day. I think I finished the short row shaping last night and started the raglan increases last night. So really not much work on this at all so far, but I'm loving it. I'm knitting this up on a 5.5mm needle. I used a 4.5mm for the ribbed neckline because I didn't want the same thing to happen with this sweater that has happened with my porcelain sweater. At the bottom, I didn't size down for the ribbing, and so it's made a sort of cone shape because the ribbing doesn't cinch in at all. I hate when ribbing cinches in so much that you look like a little balloon. But I think because this yarn is unspun and it is so delicate and airy, it needs that for structure. So I am sizing down for my ribbing on this sweater. I'm knitting up the 4th size, which will give me about 20 centimeters of positive ease. So hopefully will be quite oversized and flowy, kind of like my porcelain sweater. I really love the fit of this sweater. So hopefully trying to replicate that with this one as well. It's such an easy, quick knit, perfect for beginners. Would highly recommend if you're trying to get into sweater knitting. yeah, I will continue to rave about this pattern and this yarn. When I went op shopping, I was trying not to buy too much yarn. I almost bought a full sweater quantity, but managed to stop myself, which was good. But I did find some yarn that I was interested in buying this past week. And I have already cast on 2 projects using the yarn that I bought. So the yarn that I got is the cleckheaton baby yarn 4-ply. It's 100% nylon. Suggested needle size is 3.25 millimeters and gauge is 28 stitches per 10 centimeters. This is an Australian yarn. Cleckheaton is made in Australia. And I was just loving how soft this yarn was when I was feeling it in the op shop. It is just so incredibly soft, which is perfect for baby knits, obviously. So what I have casted on with this yarn. So with the pink color, I have casted on another baby bear bonnet, and I have only done the first section, which is just like the ribbing or the face framing section. I am knitting up the second size again, but this time I have gauge. I've met gauge for the pattern, so I'm knitting up the second size. And I was going to knit this up for our friends again, but I didn't want to gift them 2 of the same thing. So I've decided this is going to go in my baby knit stash that I am slowly building up for when we have kiddos. I haven't got much else to really say about this because it is really in its initial stages. So hopefully we'll be done by the time I podcast next, but this yarn is just so insanely soft. It's just such a pleasure to knit with. So loving that. Now in that same yarn, in the white color, I have cast on another baby knit. And this is a free pattern by Drops Design. This is the Rosy Cheeks baby sweater by Drops Design. This is it's just a raglan sweater. And I am knitting up the newborn size. So super, super tiny. I was going to do the open buttonhole for the neck, but I decided not to because this is 100% nylon and it has a lot of stretch in it. So I've just done the ribbing portion, and now I am doing the raglan increases on this one, and it's so tiny, it's so little. I did kind of get gauge. I didn't really check because I was like, we'll figure it out. So it might actually be too small, but I don't mind so much. If it doesn't fit our future baby, then I'm sure it'll fit a doll or a teddy or something in the future. But this I'm also going to be knitting up for my baby knit stash. This is a 3.25 millimeter needle, so knitting to the suggested gauge on the ball band. So yeah, that is the Rosy Cheeks sweater by Drops Design. Not much to say because I've only just started. Okay, I only have one more whip left to show you. And this one I did also show in my vlog. So if you want to know exactly how this is constructed, feel free to go check that out because I really explained it properly and in detail, so you can kind of follow those instructions. But this is a cotton project bag. Just using a stash cotton yarn that I've had forever that I needed to find something to do with. And I am just knitting it up using a double moss stitch and a 5 millimeter needle. I haven't made any progress on this since you last saw it in the vlog, so it's in the same stages. We'll see if I get anything done on it this month. I'm kind of more excited about all the other projects that I have on the needles at the moment, so this might be put on the back burner. Speaking of the back burner, I have spoken at length about my Moby sweater by Petite Knit. I'm knitting it up using 4 seasons half and half, 50% wool, 50% acrylic in a brown beige sort of color. I did mention in my previous podcast that I was intending to pick it up and work on it. I have not, and I have decided to take the pressure off completely. My goal for this year was to finish the porcelain sweater before April and then finish the Moby sweater by the end of May. But that is just not happening. The deadline isn't helping me get motivated, and I've decided that I'm just going to leave it alone until the inspiration strikes me again. I clearly cast it on because I like the pattern and I like the finished project, but I think I just have to let myself do the things I want to do and knit the things I want to knit and come back to it when I'm actually excited about it again. So back on the back burner, the Moby, and I'm going to try not to talk about it again until I actually make some significant progress. So I will zip my lip about the Moby and stop repeating myself podcast after podcast. All right, after all of that, let's talk about some plans. Now, at the start of the year, I did say that I wasn't going to cast on any big sweater projects until the porcelain and the Moby were done. I am going to redact that statement. We're leaving the Moby alone, and I am going to make some plans to cast on some gift knit sweaters. Now, my dad has asked me for a like a fisherman's style sweater, so those typical aran cable sweaters that you see. He really wants one of those. I have the yarn for it. It is cleckheaton. I can't remember exactly what the yarn is called, but I'll talk about it in my next podcast, I'm sure. Now, he chose the Dreams of Aran pattern by Drops Design. He wanted me to make that for him for Christmas this year. But unfortunately, I don't trust Drops Design adult patterns anymore. I knit up a cable sweater for my mum. Even though it was my first time knitting cables, I know in my heart of hearts that it would have been easier to knit up a paid pattern that came with, you know, appropriate charts and thorough explanations. So I've decided to just pick a sweater that I want to knit him and he can just live with it. Along the same style and the same design. He's not a fan of the Moby sweater, so I won't be making that, but something similar. So my plan is to look for something along the lines of this sweater with the cabling running down the arms as well as the honeycomb sort of texture on the front, and cast that on for him for Christmas. So that's the first plan, sweater plan. The next plan I have is to knit my partner a sweater. His birthday is in July and I would love to knit up a sweater for him for July for him to wear in the middle of winter. It's very, very cold here and very, very cold in Canberra, so I know that he will get some use out of it. I was thinking of knitting him the Zipper Sweater Man by Petite Knit, but I'm not 100% sure that he would wear it. I think he might if I knit it in the right, I guess, color and the right size, but I also think maybe I'll knit him just a basic pullover. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sort of just gonna brainstorm and look for some patterns to knit up a gift for him. I want to do it in sort of maybe a dark navy color or a gray, like a heathered gray. That's typically his choice of colors for sweaters. So I think playing it safe with one of those two options will be good, and hopefully he'll like it and get some use out of it. With regards to yarns, he does have a little bit of sensitive skin. He wouldn't go well wearing something made out of plotulopi. So something soft and something that's going to be non-itchy or scratchy is going to be the way to go. So those are my two sort of sweater plans. I obviously want to finish the step-by-step that I've cast on. And I'm really keen to do a lot more sweater knitting. Now that it's winter and I have knit sweaters to choose from, there's just something so amazing about being able to open your closet and go, which hand knit sweater am I going to wear today? So I'm really, really keen to get more on my needles and invest in more quality yarns. So that's everything I've been working on and everything I'm planning to work on. Let's talk about what I have been watching whilst I've been knitting. I've been watching a lot of podcasts and a lot of just other YouTube as well. I'm really into just vlogs at the moment, life vlogs and also knitting vlogs I've been really enjoying. So some podcasts and vlogs that I've been watching a lot of Little Drops of Wonderful. I've been loving her content so much. I think she's so fun and just so genuine and real, and I really enjoy that aspect of vlogs when I see them, just not overly produced, just sort of people going through their day. I really enjoy that. So I've been watching a lot of her content, a lot of Knit Horray as well. I really enjoy the way she talks about her knitting, and also Woozy By Celine I've been really enjoying as well. I've also been watching a lot of Morgan Unraveled. She's just moved to Canberra, which is kind of crazy. It's funny in some of her vlogs and videos, seeing familiar sights. I was literally just there a couple weeks ago visiting my partner. So seeing in her videos places that I've been to is it's a bit surreal seeing it on my TV. But I've really been enjoying her content and hearing about her travels and her time in Australia. So that's been really good. Now, TV shows and movies I've been watching. My partner and I really love Clarkson's Farm, which is a TV show about Jeremy Clarkson, who bought a farm in, I can't remember what county it is, somewhere in the UK. But we really, really, really love that show. And the 3rd season, I think it is, has just come out. And so we're making our way through that and really enjoying that. We've got, I think, 2 episodes left to go, and I'm loving that heaps. The new season of Bridgerton is coming out this week, literally in 3 days on Thursday. So I'm so excited for that. I'm a huge Bridgerton fan. I have read the first 3 books that the show is based on. So obviously Daphne and Simon's book, Anthony and Kate's book, and I've also read Penelope and Colin's book. So I'm really, really excited to see how they're going to transfer that to the screen and to see how their story is going to play out on the TV screen. I'm so excited. There's some aspects of the story that I'm just like, how are you going to incorporate that? And how are you going to continue the show after these events happen? Yeah, I'm just excited to see what they're going to do with it. And I'm obviously excited to see Colin grovel, because man has some things to make up for. In terms of what I'm reading, I recently finished reading A Court of Silver Flames. I was putting off reading it because I wasn't particularly excited about reading about Nesta's story, and I'll get to that in a second. But I took it with me on holiday to force myself to read it and to get started, and I thought I was just going to get like halfway or something. But I finished the whole thing whilst I was away on holiday by the pool. I forget how easy it is to read Sarah J. Maas's writing. Her writing style is very digestible and very quick and easy to read and to get through. So I finished it a lot faster than I thought I would. If you don't want to hear about it or you don't want spoilers, skip to this timestamp in this general vicinity, because I'm going to talk about a few plot points. Not a lot, but a little bit. So if you don't want spoilers, skip here. So everyone told me that I would be a fan of Nesta by the end of the book. And I'm not. I do not get the hype around her. I appreciate her story. I appreciate that we got a new perspective. But I just think that as a character, her motivations and her actions were not justified adequately for me. I think that Cassian as a character deserves a lot better in terms of treatment, and I would love to hear more about Cassian's story, because I feel like we didn't get much of it, and it felt like a lot of the information that we got about Nesta was very surface level, very superficial, and I found her personality to be very superficial. Obviously there's a lot of talk about trauma in that book. It just wasn't what I was hoping it would be, if that makes sense. I was hoping we would explore a lot more about the characters in a lot more detail and their past and how that felt for them. But the focus was a lot more on how they felt in the present moment and them trying to attribute that to something that happened in their past without really exploring it, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm speaking in very vague terms, but I'm trying not to be too specific. Parts that I did enjoy about the book, obviously any moments that we got to see Rhys and Feyre being adorable and amazing as always. Love them to death. They are my ride or dies. I did love the moment in the Blood Rite where Nesta took the clothes off of an Illyrian man and put them on and spoke about how oversized they were and how the boots were too big. And I don't know if any of you have seen this girl's TikToks, but this is exactly what I thought of when she spoke about how oversized the clothes were. I panicked that I ran out of storage, but really my phone's just on low battery. I think I was talking about how Nesta was wearing oversized clothes and how I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I literally spent the entire like 4 or 5 chapters of The Blood Rite thinking about how hilarious that is. And every time she mentioned it, I just couldn't get it out of my head. So a couple of chapters of scenes that were meant to be really serious and really like high stakes just felt hilarious to me. I really loved being back in the world that Sarah J Maas has built, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Nesta at all. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next from Sarah J Maas. I was thinking of starting Crescent City. And then I thought, oh no, I'll do Throne of Glass first, but I don't actually want to read either of those things at the moment. So we've stepped away again from the world of Sarah J Maas, and I'm sure I'll come back to it soon. Currently, I'm halfway through A Serpent and the Wings of Night. I can't remember the author, I'm sorry. But this was quite hyped on Instagram as well, on BookTok as well, for people who are fans of Fourth Wing. And I finally picked it up just using my Kindle Unlimited subscription for that. And I've been enjoying it. I think so far, about halfway through the book, we haven't really explored the world outside of our main character, the city that she lives in, and the trials that she's sort of going through. And so I'm excited for them to start exploring more politics of the world, because it's been alluded to a lot that there's, you know, these things going on and there's these different groups of vampires and whatever else. And so I'm excited for it to get a bit more like gritty and a bit more detailed. So hopefully in the second half, we get to a bit more politics and world building. But I've been enjoying that one, so I would recommend if you're into fantasy. And in terms of what I've been listening to, I have just been listening to The Tortured Poets Department and nothing else. I'm obsessed. I've been loving it. I feel like there's not much else I need to say that hasn't already been said. I was in shock when she released the second album, and when we got the anthology 2 hours later after the first release, was amazing. It was a very, very good day. And I think I'm really happy that she's added it to the Eras Tour set list. It was beautiful. The performance, Paris Night 1, was gorgeous. I watched a live stream, Chef's Kiss. Obsessed. I feel like there's nothing else I really need to say. Favorite songs are The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, Manuscript, even though it's so sad, The Prophecy as well I love, and also Fortnight, because I love Post Malone. And I wish that he was there on Paris Night 1, but I'm hoping he'll maybe feature in a show when she does the second leg of the American tour. So that's what I've been listening to. So I'll just quickly touch on my plans for May. We're almost halfway through the month, so it's going to be close gap between podcasts. But this month I'm just going to keep chugging along with my uni work, get my assignments in, hopefully get my ethics application in and hopefully get some approval for that. Also submit my med school application. Nothing else particularly exciting to mention. Just chugging along. Please let me know in the comments down below what you're working on, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thank you so much again to each and every one of you for watching these videos and commenting and having chats with me and subscribing. It means the absolute world. So if you haven't joined the space yet, feel free to subscribe. I'm here pretty much every month. I hope you're all safe and well wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.
I should not have said that. I shouldn't have said that. Harry Potter, you will be rewarded. You have